Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast, a special penultimate podcast for 2025. As this week we are speaking to the co-founder of the recently announced College Swimming League out in America, Kyle Sockwell. This conversation is very much a free-flowing, not very structured podcast, to be honest with you. It wasn't really an interview of sorts. It was understanding Kyle's motivations behind launching the CSL, a little bit of a deep dive behind the announcement post and what happened in terms of why ISL were attached to this, which we do dig into. And yeah, kind of understanding how the landscape of swimming could change within a league format, something that me and Dan both on this podcast have dearly missed. I know ISL wasn't perfect, but that format of swimming, that level of team environment, and actually being able to talk about a league format and competition is something that is missing from winter months, fall months, and hopefully this is the start of the changing of the guard over in the college American system and makes it more accessible for wider audiences other than those who are diehard yards fans and know all about the times of what yard swimming is, which actually me and Dan probably aren't that. So yes, this week's episode, a special one. A bit of a rambling introduction, bit of a rambling interview, but actually a really, really powerful one for how the sport of swimming is moving forwards in terms of entertainment aspect, in terms of competitions. For our final episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast, which is going to be in 1 week's time today, we are going to be doing our final recap and awards show. So make sure you're subscribed to get that one in your feed. Hopefully everyone has a good Christmas and New Year, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. This is I'm gonna say kind of led by you, because while there's a website and we've done research and everything like that, the whole point of this is to share the story, share the vision, and understand kind of the first hit out to the market in a long conversation of what's gonna happen, which is quite cool. But yeah, no, there is big interest understanding it, and you mentioned ISL in the word of anything, and it gets me and Dan excited. It gets us fired up because that was kind of the spark of swimming. That's a different era, and that spark, especially in like winter months, is kind of gone. And I think something like that needs to come back, which is why as soon as we saw it, we're like, Kyle, tell us. Yeah, we want to know more.
It was quite quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense because we haven't really put out much. You know, I jumped over, and that's intentional. You know, we're deep into conversations with schools, with broadcasters, sponsors, all of that stuff. And it's one of those things where it's kind of chicken and the egg, but it's constantly just like the chicken and the egg. And sometimes you've got two chickens and you're like, you just got to tell the other one that there's an egg, and you got to, the inverse, there's two eggs. You got to tell the other one there's a chicken. And it's a complicated game, especially, you know, being a non-revenue sport in the collegiate landscape right now. I know college swimming it's a cool product, you know, having been in it. It definitely, when I was in school, which we're going to say it was almost a decade ago.
No,
don't.
Yeah, it was 9 years ago. It hurt. I saw Leo Marchand graduated, and it popped across my feed, and I was like, oh, wow. Like, I remember being, ooh.
Yeah.
That was 2016. And it was one of those moments which I know I'm only 31, but they're becoming more common. There's more moments throughout my life now where I'm like, I'm dating myself a little bit here. Back, you know, in the 1940s when I was in college, the product just had so far to go. And I think we've made progress over the last couple of years, definitely over the last decade. And I just still think we have a long way to go. And I don't know what the runway looks like. I don't know how much time we have left. And that's a real thing. We've got a cool product in the States from a full like college sports perspective. College football is awesome. I'm a consumer of that product. College basketball is awesome. The storytelling there, they're businesses. They have been for a really long time. And I've just kind of, for a long time, been really interested in that market and that model and how that works. And namely, I was really confused in college. I did a full project on how in the world Alabama football players didn't get paid when their stadiums were full. And I mean, there are 100,000 people watching them play, and you weren't allowed to sell your jersey. You weren't allowed to do autograph sessions. I mean, it was just a really confusing thing for me. So I dove into the financial modeling of the whole thing and kind of came to the conclusion back then that I think I ended up in like the ballpark of $280 to $290 million that was running through some of the top athletic departments. And I was just like, that's wild. And so the college swimming product is one that, doesn't contribute very much to that big number. It hasn't for a long time. And it's one that, we've allowed to just be subsidized for a really long time. And one of the things that gets me most frustrated and has for a long time, and has kind of led to me being in this position, and saying yes to this position and going, yeah, like, let's take a big swing at this. And, even if it fails, like, I'll feel good about having taken a big swing at it, is, really just the fact that we can't have it both ways, right? We can't have our perfect little product, our perfect little bubble where we have 4-day prelim final events that we expect to just land magically on ESPN2. You can't just expect it to be on there and not change your product. You have to be willing to bend. You have to be willing to adapt, to modernize to an extent. Because, if you look at a sport like college volleyball is exploding. They've kind of been a sleeping giant for a long time, and I'm talking about women's volleyball in particular. But they've adjusted their product over time, namely the way that they score. It used to be, and I forget the terminology, so if there's volleyball folks watching this, I apologize. But rally scoring is either when you only score when you're serving, or if you score a point no matter what happens when the ball hits the floor. And so previously, it was only when you served you could score, which is one of those things that after you change it, you look back 2 or 3 years and you're like, what an unnecessary complexity. Like, why was this a thing that we did? And it's just an archaic rule that really served not much purpose. And it was a confusing one. The way that I think about sports and the way that I'm thinking about, this project that we're working on as we kind of have a blank canvas, as y'all mentioned, in the fall season, is how can we remove layers of complexity, especially when they are unnecessary? You talk about volleyball, it's ball hit. I always say you need to be able to explain your sport like a caveman. And the longer your caveman sentence is, the worse your product is, right? Yeah. In football, it's actually kind of a longer one, but they've got the resources to kind of allow the product to be slightly more confusing. But really, on the baseline, it is ball, end zone, points, ball, through field goal, points. Like, that's really it. There are intricacies that allow you to be a super fan. But in volleyball, it's ball, hit, floor, points on scoreboard. And then as that happens, you can kind of learn and grow as a fan. And, if you're not a super fan and you're in a venue, you can, just kind of look around and feel the energy of the crowd. And in our sport, we have people that hit the wall, win by 4 body lengths, and aren't excited. And it's just one of those where, as a new fan, if you go into a venue and you see that happen, there is, it would be difficult for me to create a scenario that is more confusing for a fan, a new fan, where you see something that checks all the boxes of this should be an exciting moment, and it's not. And so if we want to continue to live in our world where the only thing that matters is a best time, the only thing that matters is a world record, that's great. Sure, we can have that for as long as it continues to be allowed to exist. But if we're going to be subsidized by other sports, we can't be upset when all of a sudden some opportunities start to float away. And so this thing that we're working on with the CSL, and the opportunity was presented to me, was one that I just decided I had to take a swing at, because I've had so many different experiences in college swimming. I've been in the actual water. I know a lot of these head coaches and have talked to them at length. I've done the dual meet tour where I went around and I got to meet with athletic departments and facility managers and just have really deep insight into a lot of the things that make something like this possible. And I'm reminded of that kind of every day that I work on this project, but it's really exciting. For a long time, it's been wait for something to happen, try to talk about it, get frustrated because not enough is happening. And I've just had a lot of moments over the last decade or so where I've constantly thought, is this the thing? Is this where I'm meant to be having the greatest impact on this sport, or is there something else? And day to day now, it feels like this is really a comfortable role. Will I be excited about every single day of work over the next 9 months as I work with 12 different athletic departments. There's an Easter egg there, to try to come up with, a contract that all of their legal teams want to agree to. And, I had a little bit of a peek to it with the dual meet tour and these like agreements that really had no legal binding, but these are behemoths of organizations.
Yes.
I mean, they're doing $350 million in revenue. They're spending, right around that same amount, and they're attached to massive universities and they're big brands. So a lot of them are going to try to hedge and, say, how is this going to impact our ability to still be one of the best football programs and best brands in the world? And my job is now to say, it's not going to impact that. Let us just tear up the fall season. Let us tell great stories. And honestly, the way that I'm thinking about this whole thing is how can we create, and I'm ending my tangent now, how can we create incredible moments for student athletes in the fall season in one that is typically such a grinded out, go to a dual meet, not even suit up, which I know is a foreign concept overseas, one that we've started to get away from. But it's a part of the season that just feels so unimportant. And I just don't think that's fair. If we're swimming and we're dedicating resources to things, let's try to maximize it.
So is that what you're doing right now? You're selling the vision of CSL to, they are big. They're big brands. Like I have bought shirts of the big brands because I follow college football. That's what you're doing. So what are you saying? Like, how are you selling this product? Because I know the nuts and the bolts and all of that probably isn't figured out entirely at this point in time. And the sport of swimming is stuck in its way in many aspects. Mm-hmm. So what are you saying to say, look, this is different than swimming that you're used to? How are you selling this?
Yeah, luckily the bar is really low in college swimming. And if anyone disagrees with that, I'm really not sure where we've kind of separated our opinions. The season in college swimming is one of the most complex things maybe in all of sports. The way that I look at it is we do 3 different types of swimming, actually more than that, like 5 different types of swimming throughout one season, right? You come in September, dual meets kick off. There's tri meets and quad meets mixed into there. And then come November, all of a sudden we're doing invites, which is up to 8 teams. Some of them score all the way down to the D final. Some of them score up to the C final. Some of them swim D finals. Some only swim C finals. Some of them do a 5-day format. Some do a 4-day format. And then we go back to dual meets and quad meets and tri meets before going back again to the 4-day prelim or 5-day prelim final format in February and March. It's just so unbelievably complex. And the majority of the opportunity to not disrupt, which is, we are disrupting a little bit, but we really don't want to disrupt the NCAA product. The NCAA championships on the men's and women's side of things, I know y'all watch it. It's exciting. It's fast paced. I know it's in yards, and that's a thing that we've done to ourselves over the last 40 years. The pool infrastructure just is what it is. Everything's in yards, and it would sink the sport in a half a minute. Probably the amount of time that it takes Jordan Crooks and Guy Caribe to lead off a 200 freestyle relay for the first 100. That would be how long it took the sport to completely implode if we decided to switch to meters. Another Easter egg there. This is probably going to be in yards. But really, it's in communicating with coaches. Coaches have been fired up about this. We're batting 1,000% in terms of interest. Everyone kind of sees the opportunity that is the fall part of the season. When we talk to the NCAA, it's, we're not trying to disrupt what you guys do. We're trying to be an additive to your storytelling and tell longer stories that y'all can then develop into your conference championships, your NCAA championships. And let's start it when the season actually starts, like many other sports, if not all sports. So the communication of, hey, we're looking at the fall part of the season. We want to create an in-season kind of storytelling bubble that you just allow us to kind of take over that front part and tell incredible stories, really ramp up production and create the most commercially viable product possible. And if y'all want to learn from that, speaking to the NCAA or conferences, or if we can consult based on some things that you see us doing, let us take those risks, because us coming in here and taking those risks, we have little to no red tape. The NCAA and these conferences have a ton of red tape to walk through and cut through. And some of it, it feels like it's made out of steel. So really the communication right now is we're trying to give these schools a low to no cost opportunity to go compete and qualify for the NCAA championships based on individual performances, and also just be seen. Because that's, if you think about from an AD's perspective, what are my KPIs? If you think about football, it's, what kind of impact are we having on our student body? What kind of value are we generating for the non-student athlete? Well, they get to go to football games. They have a student section. Really the surrounding value that you provide to a student athlete through college football and college basketball is pretty dense. And the list of things is long. Even if you're watching from home, you're providing value. Even if that kid's home for Thanksgiving and he wears an Alabama sweatshirt and somebody comes up and, jabs at him about football, they've provided value into that conversation. So they want that. They want visibility for the brand, build the brand, sell more shirts, sell more tuition, all of that stuff. But on top of that, they're a business. And I think we, as a small fraction of what college sports are, very small fraction, we kind of forget from time to time that we are a piece of a much larger business. And businesses have balance sheets, and they're very easy to look through. Some of them are red, and our sport is, probably top to bottom, very red. So one of the things that excites me the most is getting to kind of help college coaches have something to go to athletic departments with and say, hey, there's this thing that's going on. Let's figure out if we want to do it or not, where we are going to get low cost or little to or no cost opportunities to go compete for a chance to swim at the NCAA championships, just like we normally do in the fall part of the season. And on top of that, they're trying to get this thing on linear TV where our brand is going to be shown. There's potential that we might be able to host one of these events. We haven't talked about that yet, but we might get to host one and have our branding and stuff and, have a student section, and just giving coaches the opportunity to go to these athletic directors and speak their language is really one of the main things that I try to take into each of these conversations. How can I be a resource for these coaches to get to show that as a sport, we're thinking the way that everybody in that athletic department wants and has been wanting for a long time. They've been wanting us to think like this, attendance, revenue, ticket sales. How can we get licensing for food and beverage in our venue? Can we do a VIP section on deck? That's how every other sport thinks. And so if we're coming into this with a coach in mind, I think we're approaching it the right way, because the coaches typically have the best interest of the student athletes. And really the student athlete experience should fall onto the league. It should be us that is trying to provide an incredible in-venue and online experience for them. And also let's remove a little bit of that, or take a couple of the hats off that all these college coaches are having to wear, because they're kind of backed up against the wall in terms of promoting dual meets, creating a regular season, and just vying for any sort of resources from an athletic department, to the point where, you get to this dual meet and now you have to remind yourself, oh yeah, that's right, I'm a coach. So let's take that front half of the season for some of these teams and create an environment for you and let you just show up and perform. Because if you get to show up and perform and you're ready and you're on your first cup of coffee of the day, as opposed to your fourth, and you're up until 1 a.m. last night, making sure all of the, bells and whistles of your dual meet were in line. And that's important too. Like, let's let the coaches coach, give the coaches something to go talk to their ADs about that'll get the AD excited, and then just put on an incredible show 8 times. So it's another small Easter egg.
So you said before that there's going to be, or you're targeting 12 founding members for 2026. NC State, I think Ohio State, have been vocal in their support already. Is there a criteria for a school or a college to get into the league?
So it is combined scoring. One of the main things that we wanted to do, and it helps us be a little bit more malleable in terms of broadcasting. If we could maybe do some mixed relays or what, kind of format adjustments we would need to do, because TV is TV. They're not going to bend and break because we think we deserve a spot. So there's not necessarily too many criterias. We're hoping to expand that. We have to keep it really tight knit in the first year and just kind of see how it plays out, since we do have, 4 teams going to each of these events, and it's going to be 2. Teammates are going to be next to each other, which I don't know how many people understand the way that we set things up at dual meets, but we alternate.
Okay.
We alternate lanes for some reason, when we have the ability to just put 4 on one side and 4 on the other and have them wear alternate colored caps. And, there are other sports that do that, namely all of them. I from my perspective, it just doesn't make sense to alternate lanes in an event. So the fact that we're able to do that is really exciting. Because I mean, just
it sounds like these little details that you've been thinking about for a long time.
One of them came up right here, the one that I was just talking about. Arizona State versus Cal, the men's dual meet in the rain at Cal Berkeley, came down to the last relay. They ended up tying 150 to 150. I was sitting right here. My heart rate has never been higher for the end of a dual meet. I got to kind of put on, as I was just watching as a fan, I got to put on my Arizona State fan hat and just watch it from the perspective of a fan, which I get to do less and less often these days. They were all wearing yellow caps. All 8 of them. So, and it was a relay. So I was just watching this like, so we're alternating lanes. So it's not like, okay, the bottom half of the pool is ASU, the top half of the pool is Cal. It's alternating lanes and everyone's wearing yellow caps. So these are just the details that we're trying to take from other sports. We're not going to be able to do it with suits maybe in 10 to 15 years when we've got a ton of money flowing through this sport. Fingers crossed. Yeah. We can get some custom suits. But right now, I mean, what reason does an arena or a Speedo or a tier have to create custom suits for the NCAA championships so that you have, these custom beautiful, for Cal, let's call it those yellow suits or something like that. The viewership isn't to the point where they're going to throw out enough VIK, which is value in kind, and how some of these contracts operate to ensure that, you've got these beautiful suits that make you stand out. Can we get there? Maybe.
I mean, it's like we've had it over here once. I can remember an Arena League final, which is our kind of like high school level, I would say. One team showed up in a Finnish white suit. Like, it wasn't purely for that school, but Finnish white suits is cool, and that stands out. Like, it is possible to do these things without too much barrier to entry.
It's possible. And without having too much of a peek behind the curtain, I don't know how much money that costs. I'm sure that, the run of suits that they have to do, the amount of fabric they have to lay out is probably a decent amount. But I mean, you're right. The small things that we're thinking about are things like that. And our ability to put together run a show and, go into a meeting with a linear TV broadcasting partner is so important. And one that I know they're all really excited about is we come in and we say, hey, our show open is going to be 5 minutes, and then we're going to roll into the first event, which we've timed out is going to take 7 minutes. We're going to have 1 minute between each. We're going to have these breaks. What do you think about these breaks? And we're building shows that we can collapse and expand to fit the needs of broadcasting. And, we want to stick with one and just go into this with the mindset of we want to create the show that if we get a call from ESPN or if we get a call from CBS or Fox and they say, hey, y'all are creating a great product, we want to get on the phone and have a conversation about giving y'all a linear slot or, having y'all pay for some linear time to get, that exposure. We can say our product is ready. We don't have to move it at all. If we build a 4-hour, which some of our events run for 4 hours for some reason. If we build a 4-hour product, I can tell you right now, and you can quote me on this, we will never see TV time. There are maybe 2 or 3 sports in the world that can get a 4-hour linear window. We are not one of them. And I don't see us ever being there. And it's one of those where, we have this product you look at. And I mean, admittedly, I was someone that previously looked at this stuff before I, got a little bit deeper look into what goes into creating a linear product and how you get on linear TV, which is ESPN, ESPN2, Fox, CBS, all those platforms. It is so intentional and everything has to be like to the minute planned out. And if swimming is a 4-hour show or even a 2-hour and 45-minute show where a backstroke wedge breaks 3 or 4 times, or if we have, some other malfunctions take place that pushes our schedule too long, if we don't have a little bit of baked in time, they're going to cut to soccer, football. Well, we're talking about the CSL football or whatever, the other thing is, and maybe kick us somewhere else. So, there's a lot to learn. We're learning a lot throughout this process, but we're creating a product that is malleable enough. And we're saying, I think, a few of the right words in these conversations that have, a lot of the people that we're talking to that I expected to be roadblocks in our corner trying to help us find solutions. It's a lot of let's find a way to get to a yes as opposed to, them trying to find a way to make it a no, which is really inspiring. So positive signs initially, but to kind of wrap back around to the initial point, because it's still sitting right back here in my head. The criteria for the first, initial season is, can we get the absolute best teams possible that are going to give us the best shot at making it to season 2? And in season 2, if we crush it, can we expand? In season 3, can we expand more? Can we expand more? And, what does the product look like 10 years from now? I have no idea, but hopefully, our list of teams that are participating grows year over year. That's really the KPI that I'm looking at year over year, as opposed to revenue. I think revenue will inform our ability to grow and add new teams, but up front, unapologetically, we have to go get the biggest brands possible.
Yeah. Now, around the first announcement that came out, it was the 3 letters of ISL that caught probably a lot of attention from everyone because of the association with kind of commercial swimming, the attempt of ISL. And while ultimately it's not here, so I guess it failed, in some ways, I think it was a massive success at showing what swimming can be. So how great is it and how helpful is it having those conversations with linear television and broadcasters and clubs and coaches to say, look, this is kind of what we're drawing inspiration on. This isn't something new that people are having to think about. You can actually present to them, look, this is, I'm not saying this is the product. Like, I'm not saying it's ISL 2.0, but it makes easier discussions.
I'm sure there were lessons learned from ISL as well. You can implement as well. Yeah.
100%. The announcement, and so just to really kind of clear the air on everything, is we're not the ISL, we're our own organization, we're a standalone product. Rob Kent, who was our CEO, who does have ties into the ISL and got to watch it firsthand. He was the GM of the Toronto Titans. He's bringing in a lot of expertise on the format side of things and filling in a lot of blind spots that I have, and I'm filling in a lot of blind spots that he might have into the NCAA market. And we're just working really complementary. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned, the CSL is the CSL. The ISL is excited about it. They're excited about, our potential to be able to communicate as, 2 different entities, which you see in all these other sports, right? College basketball, the NBA, college football, the NFL. You see it all throughout the world in all of these big sports. You have these 2 different entities that communicate and help you tell a longer story. One of the things that I always think about is, or in anything that I do, is how long can we make this story? Can we stretch it out? Not to the point where you stretch it so thin that the content starts to fail, but is there a way to stretch this storytelling out? Even if, we'll just go back to one of the things that I don't want to talk about me too much, but this is kind of where I learned it. When I initially started the whole gene swimming thing, and that ended up taking off and kind of built a little bit of the framework of who I became for a while in the sport from a media perspective, it was, I'm going to swim in jeans. I thought that was the end of it. And then all of a sudden things started to kind of play out. And then we fast forward all the way up to when I ended up coming over there and racing Adam and doing that whole thing. I learned throughout that, that gap between where I threw jeans on to do kind of a promotional opportunity for Fitter and Faster when we sent some people out to the Olympic, or not the Olympics, that would have been expensive. It was still expensive. Sent some people out to Olympic trials. It was like, hey, let's do this. And I was like, how funny would it be if I swam in jeans? And David Arlick said, I'll get you a pool. And that was a moment where I was like, oh, well, first of all, I was like, oh, God, I don't know how that's going to go. But it was also like, that was the whole story, right? We did it. And after that, the story took off on its own. When I went over and swam with Adam, the amount that we learned in between those 2 situations was I got on a call with Adam and Ed from AP Race and said, hey, yeah, I'm really interested in coming over there. Let's do this. And let's do something a little bit bigger, though. And they're like, what do you want to do? And so I floated the idea of, racing Adam in jorts as kind of a joke. And much like David in that scenario where he was like, I'll get you a pool, Adam was like, all right. Yeah. And so I had another moment where I was like, oh, great. Why do I keep doing this to myself? In the first one I was racing the jeans, and this one I was racing Adam. But then from there, we started to build this story, right? We said, we're racing in May. We had this conversation in, February or January. Let's kick things off with, one of those Instagram DM screenshots, which are actually not screenshots from a DM, believe it or not. it's a custom graphic that I built. So a little peek behind the curtain there. So that we don't have to go back and forth with me texting Adam and saying, all right, now send this. All right, I'll send this. But we can kind of just go back and forth and send drafts. But that's just another leg in like the idea that we can tell longer stories. So in the way that the CSL can communicate with the ISL, if the ISL does come back, and I believe there are intentions for the ISL to come back, my fingers are crossed for them. I don't have a ton of visibility into their world or what they're doing right now. I just know that they support us and they support our attempt at, trying to create a better environment in college swimming, and tell those longer stories, right? So if we kick off the season in September and we've got the first match, is what we're calling them, of course, where, we have these 4 schools that compete. That meet story doesn't end when that meet ends, right? Some of these dual meets, maybe their stories like trickle on a little bit longer, if they have cool attendance or they have some kind of story or Easter egg you can take with you. But in this one, before the championship starts, you can have fans thinking all the way back to the first match or the second or the fifth or the fourth and talking about the third and all of this. And, based on what teams get ranked and make the wild card, which is a product that we're working on as well, where there's kind of a do or die moment where you show up, you compete, and 2 of those teams might get into the championship. Might is a very unnecessary word. It's just true. And I'm excited to release all this stuff. But how can we tell the story of a season where we have a season, a postseason, and kind of like an intermediary with the wild card that kind of helps even elevate that, and then build that into the rest of the season where you have all these faces and names that you typically just see. And I always say, most of my content for a long time, especially in this fall part of the season, was and didn't go beyond insert name, just went insert time, and then add context after that to make it feel important, right?
Yep.
Previously, when we didn't suit, I would have to say, I'll just use Ilya for an example because he's always swimming fast in dual meets. Ilya Karun just went 20.1 in a 50 fly split in a dual meet in September in a brief. And it's like, what story are we telling? Yeah. And how can we expect people to jump on board and be like, I understand how impressive that is. If you've never done a 50 fly, good luck following that. If you've never done a 50 fly in a suit and in a brief, good luck following the context of how different those 2 things are. And also, if you don't know Ilya and how different his ability is to swim in a tech suit versus in a brief versus how fast he goes in season, there are so many layers required to understand how fast something like that is. How can we peel back those layers and just create a story that a student, not even a student athlete, can walk into a building and say, there's 4 teams here. I want my team to be on top of that board because I know that matters for the meets that might be happening, might potentially, who knows, could happen in November, right?
A lot of sources clearly got into it. Like there's so many little trinkets here and there that you've clearly thought about every single bit. So when it comes to like in-venue experience, how have you thought about that? Have you gone with like, let's say your traditional ISL, lots of lighting, like a DJ, something like that to make it sort of stand out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, that is where the dream job starts to really feel like a dream job. I'm enjoying having all these conversations with coaches and ADs and broadcasting partners. And I'm in a lot of rooms that I felt like, or I still kind of feel like I'm the imposter. I'm working on that because it definitely doesn't help me in those conversations to sit there and feel like I'm not supposed to be in the room. But that part, getting to kind of construct the show is where I'm just gonna, I'll be up at 4 a.m. and I won't go to bed until midnight. Not because, I have meetings, maybe I'll have meetings, but because I just can't stop thinking about it. If I'm having trouble going to bed because I'm just spinning in my head, thinking about ideas for how to make the in-venue experience better for fans, then we're doing the right thing. So all of the things you mentioned, I think we're going to do a lot of them. I don't expect we're going to go to the degree or the scale that the ISL went to in venue, admittedly. And hopefully, since they are supporting us, hopefully they're not paying attention to this part. I didn't watch the ISL that intently. I don't know why. I think I was just at a point in my career where I was really deep into getting a paycheck and just needed to focus on clients or whatever it might be and people ebb and flow in terms of, fandom and being a fan of a sport. If it's your job, then, you can kind of just stay locked in. And I think we're lucky to get to, work in a sport and get to, convince people, like namely my fiance, that watching a swim meet is something that I have to do for my job.
with her.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great problem to have. But at the same time, I just don't think we're going to go that big. Our thought is we want to be sustainable. We really want to look at this from the point of view of, can we create a product that rivals the quality in venue and online of an NCAA championship? And can we do it 8 times roughly in the fall part of the season, make it replicatable, and then in the next year kind of take that next step to the point where, maybe we start to raise the tide of everything. Can we create a good enough product and show people in the swimming community that you can create an in-venue and online product that rivals, some of the big products this sport puts on and the big properties are able to, put on from an in-venue and online perspective? Can we do that? And can we do it without spending $4.2 billion? Things are expensive, and I'm learning that pretty quickly. But at the same time, we're able to work in a way that is lean enough that I think we're going to put on a really, really good show. And luckily we'll be able to learn kind of week over week and tweak things. It's going to be really cool. The things and the conversations that I've had with people so far, it just really seems and feels like, and this adds to the pressure that I feel, that it's like, how can we help? Doesn't matter. We're gonna put on an absolute show. Like, let's do this together, which is so exciting that we've got kind of that community moment. It feels like where it feels like all hands on deck. Let's put on something awesome and see what we can create. Not see what you can create. If that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. It is my job, so that's fine. But it really does feel like a collective effort. So long answer, but the short answer of it is we're going to put on a pretty awesome show.
I'm tingling slightly. There's so many things that I'm so excited about, that what you said. Like, me and Dan have had these conversations, like almost for the past year, we have been stuck in a rut of covering swimming and just saying, like, we are struggling to make this exciting now because we are talking about times, and times are times. Like, at the end of the day, time, like, we can't change what happens. There's literally
we were talking about semi-finals as well, weren't we? Like, do we need semi-finals? It's just an extra layer which we don't really need. But yeah, carry on. Sorry.
There's like no narrative that I can build other than Summer McIntosh is the best swimmer in the world. Like, that, I can't sell anything more than that. There's only one layer, but that's the top of the sport. There's nothing beneath it. And we have long said sports that are dictated on times will fail in a commercial aspect and in a commercial world, and sport is very much changing to being an entertainment. And the fact that you're talking a league structure is very, very much needed. That being said, are you going to have times on the scoreboard? Is it going to be placings? Is it going to be points? You're still going to have times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Baseball has batting averages. And so that's kind of the way that I look at this is we're inverted, right? So I was at the CSCA Dual Meet Challenge, and while I didn't agree with every single thing they did in venue or structurally to make the event as commercially viable and awesome as possible, they did take a stab at it. They did. And one of the things that they did was when an athlete hit the wall, score changed right away. Okay. So when you hit the wall in the time that you turned around, the score would be updated. And the board, and oh man, I'm going to forget. I think it's Dave Lacey. I forget what his company's name is. But he did these graphics and set this whole thing up so that on the in-venue board, you had the score and then you had the times in the middle. We're just inverted. Our scoreboard is batting averages, and we don't have the 4 to 3 that a baseball game would have. It is completion percentages, quarterback rating. It's possession time for soccer. But it should be the opposite. So the way that I think about an event is in a couple of different capacities. I like to put myself in the shoes of these different fans and the fan groups. And the way that I think about it is I always think from the perspective of just the fan that goes by themselves and the family that goes. Because the in between of that is just kind of assumptions based on, the fan that goes by themselves and the family. The fan that goes by themselves, will they feel so overwhelmed and lost and confused that they're not able to like ask a question to the person next to them and kind of have that expert in the room help bring them into the sport? And for the family of 4, have we created enough moments throughout that event that when you're on the way home, you make it all the way home and you still have things to talk about when you walk inside? So I think about this thing from, how long can we make this event? Not just how long is the product, but how long does the event actually take? From, do we have things happening 2 hours before the show starts? So there's a little Easter egg into the things that I'm thinking about for like in venue. It doesn't even necessarily have to be in venue. Some of it might be, but we need things to start taking place 2 hours beforehand. We don't need everyone to just show up, 200 medley relay goes off. It doesn't need to be that way. It can be, what are these activations that we can have taking place 2 hours before the show that help build people up into the show? 2 hour show, there's another hour or an hour and a half. Maybe there's, a bar somewhere that is going to be the home of the after show or something along those lines. And have we created enough moments throughout that timeline that a family on the way home is like, I want to be so good at creating an in-venue experience that we create people like me who annoy other people with how often they talk about swimming. Like, I want to create those opportunities. I want to create more annoying Kyles at the bar talking about, I don't know, probably bringing up Phelps's 8 golds again. But to your point, Scott, about how difficult it is to cover this sport, I'll go on a very short tangent. And hopefully the athlete that I name in this doesn't really care that I name her. I 100% agree. People don't understand how comparative the Olympic dilemma is for people that cover this sport. When the Olympics happen and you have all this stuff and it's run and gun and go and go and go and stuff's hitting and, stuff might underperform, but you've got another thing tomorrow that you're working on that you think is going to hit, and then it does. And then all of a sudden it closes and you kind of crescendo off and, you put out all that kind of moonlight content trying to keep things alive. And then all of a sudden you wake up in the morning and you're like, what do I talk about now? It's a very similar process to how an athlete comes home from the games and it's like that Olympic hangover of like, what do I train for now? As we talked about, I think before we started recording, when you're out of shape for not swimming, but for recording and interviewing, it might be obvious to us only, but I think, to an extent, you want to put out the best product you can. You're on a call with somebody. You don't have as many interviews lined up because people are off doing their own things, which is fine. It's a very real reality of the peaks and valleys of this job. And in other sports, it's very copy and paste. In the NBA, you talk about the NBA while it's happening and trades and whatnot. And then in the off season, you talk about the draft, you talk about, the business of basketball, and then you reboot the whole thing. Copy, paste, just keep on moving. And so there was an athlete that I spoke to specifically about this. And the moment where I think ended up where y'all were at, where I was like, what now? Was after Gretchen's senior year, where we had this athlete that was breaking record after record after record. She went sub 20 on a relay in the 50 free. I still think that was underreported. And I feel like I'm a part of that. And I wish the product that took place on stream was just a little bit better to support that. And we had a little bit more of a moment for her, and that, that's the only time that's ever going to happen ever. I got to talk to her at Golden Goggles. And I had a moment that I didn't really expect I was going to have, where I kind of just leveled with her and I was like, I don't feel like I can do anything more to illustrate how incredible you are as an athlete and do a better job trying to prop you up to then, do what you do. And that's the way that I've kind of looked at storytelling and media over the course of my swimming media career is, how can I help prop up these athletes and build these stories? Because I know on the back end, it's going to benefit me. It doesn't have to be a selfish process. It can be, how can I be an additive to these stories, which is why I love commentary so much. I have so much rapport with these athletes, which is awesome. it also kind of sucks because like watching a 50 free Olympic trials final and I know all 8 guys that are racing, I'm like, oh God, 6 of my friends are going to be really disappointed. But I'm also going to kind of feel like I should be happy for 2 of them. That moment though stuck with me because I was like, what can I do more? How can I, and where do I go? Is it just pushing and pushing and pushing on media, or do I jump at an opportunity like this and say, you know, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and I'm going to start pulling levers, because no one can really tell me that I can't pull a lever. They can just tell me that I have to pull a different one or pull one in a different room, which, you know, in some of these conversations with broadcast partners and, you know, all of these guys that make these decisions for other sports, that's real. They're like, you can't pull this one all the way. If you pull this one all the way, the whole thing blows up. And I'm like, all right, I won't pull it all the way, but I'll think about it. It's really just the whole thing is, how can we get away from insert name goes insert time in insert event and move into our ability to analyze the entire product, which is these 4 teams are competing, and then go layer by layer by layer by layer to the point where I hope that we have a complex enough product in terms of depth that you can go into it, that it feels like you can't fit everything into one show talking about it, right? That's what I hope. And hopefully the product in venue is one that's exciting enough that you come out of that and you go, how are we going to talk about all this? Like how are we going to get all this done? Because I've had moments like that. They're so exciting. They're overwhelming and exciting in like the NCAA product where we have like a Leo Marchand that's breaking. And I'm like, it's just piling up and piling up and piling up. And I'm like, man, if we had this 8 weeks in a row, I would be able to hire someone to help me cover all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But
the content would do the work itself.
It would.
Exactly. But the reality is we don't have that. It's in 2 weeks, this whole thing's going to die down. And this 1 week puzzle is just a puzzle that you create and then you look at it. And then it takes you 11 months to break it down and then start with a piece again. Weird analogy. But the way that we look at this whole thing is, you know, how can we tell longer stories that also just have so much depth to them? And I wish we could reset Gretchen's career so that she could race again, you know, in September and November coming up this fall, because we'd be able to tell the story of how fast she's swimming, but also what kind of impact she's having on her team's ability to qualify for another event that's coming up and is directly tied to this first event. So there's going to be another Gretchen. Maybe she'll jump on a headset or something and get to feel like she's, you know, tied in that way and kind of look through the lens of who she used to be, but who she is now. And I think that's where you get great commentators. Random sidebar.
Do you think there's a future then where there could be like an all-star team of these historic NCAA swimmers coming into it, and actually you make your own brand around a team and insert it into the landscape? Or do you think that maybe detracts too much away from the college product that you're actually trying to prop up?
It's tough. Parity in swimming is really difficult to create. Really difficult. And if you throw together a team of pros, it's kind of like throwing the Detroit Lions against Alabama. Like the Detroit Lions are going to win. It would be over before the first quarter. You know, my dream as somebody that's, you know, building a game and building a product is that every single one of our 8 meets comes down to that last relay. Sure. You know, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't happen in other sports, but there are things that we're thinking of where we're just allowed to get hyper creative and say yes to that crazy idea that I throw on the whiteboard. And then, one of the things that I think I undervalued was how many relationships I had in this sport. So I can send a text, and I think there's actually, like, to a degree, a little bit of like, this has to be coming from a good place. At least I think so. If not, then I've done a bad job, explaining that or showing that. I mean, really at my core, I just want the sport to succeed. It's one that I've loved since I was 4. If anyone's listening and thinks that I'm in this for a awesome house and a Ferrari, you're out of your mind. This isn't a sport that is propped up with any sort of cash flow. The investment opportunities for an endeavor like this are incredibly limited. But hopefully we perform to the degree that we're able to go seek outside investment too. And that's the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, the goal isn't to just say, hey, I need more money. We need more money. It's to go, hey, we have an opportunity here to grow this thing and even buy more linear time. Maybe we can throw all 8 events on linear next year. How cool would that be? Here you go. Go make it happen.
I'll back you in that, and the fact that we've gone through the whole College Swimming League website, everything, every press release. To be fair, there's no mention of Kyle Sockwell on there. This isn't the Kyle Sockwell show.
Thank you. Okay, I'm so glad you said that exact phrase. The amount of calls that I've said that on, that is, and if anyone is listening that thinks that I want that, I do not. I want the exact opposite. With that being said, I've said that to a few people that are way better at stuff and have way deeper careers than I do. And they've said kind of don't. So I'm kind of battling this thing right now where I don't want this to be about me at all. I don't really want to be on a commentary headset. I don't want my voice on this thing. I want this to be a product of something that I'm able to just build and not prop up on the back of, the career that I've built or the brand that I've built for myself. I've gotten some pushback from some people that kind of made me reset a little bit and realize that I can just be a resource. And also these are the stories that I wanted to tell anyway. So it's a tough balance to try and walk. I need to be in the press releases because, I'm involved. But at the same time, other than just being, a window into what we're doing, I don't want to be in the pool. Maybe I'll do a surprise Gene swim in the championship to kind of ruminate on, what kind of kicked off this whole career that landed us here. But I mean, you're right. The phrasing that I use is I don't want this to be my show. I want this to be 8 shows that we built and created so that we can show off how incredible these athletes are, because they are. I mean, bottom line, they are. And going back to Gretchen, it's I don't want to, the thing that I think about the most is in 4 years, if I have another conversation with an athlete and I think I didn't do a good enough job telling your story, that is 100% on me now, because the levers are in front of us. In my dramatic post that I put out just to let people know that this is a thing that I'm doing, and that might be why some of the content hasn't been as consistent. If in 4 years that, I stand in front of whoever it might be and I say, it's not we didn't do a good enough job, it's I didn't do a good enough job. So that's exciting. It's also definitely scary, but I want to be scared. So let's keep it rolling.
So for this to succeed, then what needs to happen? What kind of goals have you set out for this first season to then make it a long-term success in season 2, 3, 4, etc.?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that we've been watching and kind of modeling this whole thing off of, not from the, the actual game, obviously, was the Maui Invitational, which is a basketball kind of tournament that operates up in Hawaii and operates within the college basketball regular season. The reason we're looking at that is because it is a series of events with a champion within a season that is obviously dominated by March Madness. That kind of gave me hope that this was possible. And I still believe that it's possible as a result of that. And in the conversations that we're having with people that I thought would hate what we're doing when we say Maui Invitational and related to swimming, they're like, okay, you're thinking along the right lines. Yeah. But what also inspired me with the Maui Invitational is they do it in high school gymnasiums that seat up to 2,400 people. One of swimming's biggest, I think, blockades, I think might be the right word, is our seating capacities, especially in the U.S. We have venues that are built for training and built for club meets. They're not built for the show. So our venue opportunities are very limited. There are a few that we're looking forward to hopefully working with. And if you have a venue that seats an incredible amount of people and you're listening to this, then send me an email. But what inspired us is that this thing is happening and it's not propped up off the back of ticket sales alone. Now, I'm anticipating that we're going to be able to sell these things out. We've got an awesome marketing plan behind this. I'm going to get to lead that show, which I'm so excited about. I'm excited to get to lead kind of like a marketing push that isn't just, resulting in me swimming against Adam and, getting to kind of tell a deeper and just bigger story. But for this to succeed, it needs to be a product that is consumable, not just for us. We do care about our core audience, and you'll see that in season 1. There are things that are on my whiteboard over here that I can't quite turn around yet, that I think are going to get people excited and hopefully show the swimming community as well that, this is coming from someone that has experienced the things, everything that annoys a swimming fan. And while, this season that we're, doing some things to hopefully cater to the swimming audience, it might not be forever. Hopefully our intention that we're kind of laying out with some of the things that we're working on will then kind of inform the rest of the decisions. So if we end up signing a large deal, it's a result of our ability to say, hey, we hear you. We have heard you. That's why we're doing this in season 1. And, hopefully all of this stuff comes true. I think so. I think it might. But really it comes down to, can we tell a good enough story to intrigue enough people, get good ratings, and, potentially sign a big media deal or land sponsors. Obviously, merchandise is really more of a thing that's just going to be fun for me, and fun for people to get to represent and put something on, that says, I care about the sport from that point of view. I think what we're representing here is kind of the modernization or the attempt at a modernization of a sport that has been really stuck for a long time. And so hopefully that's a little bit of what our logo represents, but hopefully it represents these schools and these athletes as well, that are diving in here, literally. And I could have used a different word so I didn't come off so punny. But they are. AI. I mean, these athletes are taking a risk. If they put on a show, I'll forever be in their debt. These coaches are taking a risk too and saying, we're going to be different. We're down to be different. Like, let's go for it. And some of the schools that you're going to hopefully see come out, you'll be like, interesting. That's maybe a coach that I typically wouldn't think would be this modernized or think this, forward about the sport because of, whatever it might be. But I can tell you right now that almost 100% of coaches in the NCAA, especially teams in the top 25, are thinking this way. They want this thing to adjust. They want it to change. Because admittedly, like we need it to. So success looks like really good ratings, and our ability to then, land quality partners that want to, jump on board year after year. Like the Maui Invitational is the Southwest Maui Invitational. If Southwest is watching and they want to jump on board, we'll give you a great deal in year 1. and hopefully in year 2, we got to double or triple it, but that's my job after that.
I really do think there is a turn in tide. Like as people who are within the media sphere, I think we just see the rut and the change coming. And albeit we are detached from the NCAA system, but we do see what's going on over there. And I think there is a drive for change, and they kind of spot, I want to say warning signs, but I'm not sure that is like a harsh enough term. I think it's danger signs that, something bad could happen if the sport of college swimming doesn't start adjusting.
Yeah, I agree. I've kind of felt that for a long time, but I think you're right. It was warning signs, and now it's definitely danger signs. I wish more people understood how dire the situation was, and the impact that could have, not just on U.S. swimming. Like so people. I love do you guys think short course yards records should be world records or no?
Yes.
Never really thought about it, but yeah, sure. Yeah.
I like the sure. Yeah. You don't have to give me a hard answer. I think one of the comments that I've been so like stuck on is, this is going to impact U.S. swimming. I'm like, hold on. 50% of these teams are non-Americans. Like this is a pretty global product, and more so in swimming, I think, than maybe any other sport. It is a global product that probably has a majority still of Americans. My house, my senior year was, I think, majority international. And we had some houses that were fully international, which is a great thing. You get to experience different cultures in college when you're at your absolute dumbest and trying to kind of like learn and adjust and realize that, you don't just live in this bubble of just Texas or just America. and yada yada yada. But there is definitely a rumbling, I think is what it is, a restlessness within the core audience of swimming that is getting to the point where they're a little fed up, I think, with the lack of progress from some of these major organizations. And I'm cautiously optimistic that even without our success, that over the next couple of years, we're going to see some cool products start to come out and media properties start to come out in events. What the AP race guys have done. I mean, when I was at that event, Scott, you were there too, right?
Yeah. I've been there for a few years. Yeah,
it's been a blur.
It's different.
And that entire event, like I didn't know I was going to swim 3 times, so we'll put that out there. That kind of until very close beforehand, so that kind of changed my ability to really soak in that event. I was just trying to process lactic acid and jet lag at the same time. But what they did out there, and what Ed has done, creating a true event. Right. It is a finals. It's a show. It's run like a true commercial product. And I think as that product continues to grow, now you're putting pressure on other people. I think we've just been in a situation where there isn't enough pressure applied internally on everyone else to raise, their capabilities. So I'm hopeful.
As I say, I know there's pressure applied from that meet. Like I've heard conversation behind the scenes. That's changing what is happening elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I was there and I was looking around and I was like, if I was sitting in an office, a few different offices around the world, and I think there is, to a degree, like you have to have been there, getting to watch that in person and listen to the crowd and hear Ed say yes as many times as he did, which is great. I mean, so when we walked out for the 3rd race, when Adam and I had all the kids behind us, I brought that idea up, I think maybe like an hour before we started. I was like, what if, because we were trying to figure out how to do something a little bit different each time, because it did get a little bit redundant. And I was just like, what if we walked out with like some club kids behind us or whatever? And Ed was like, yeah, we could get the basket carrier kids to come out with you. And I was like, oh, and it was just another one of those like asking you shall receive, right?
Yeah.
Where Ed was like, yeah, we can do that. And of course, then somebody else was like, oh, all right, now I got to go do something. But then we made it happen, and getting to talk to those kids and listen to them and kind of watch the footage back of some of them being nervous, kind of being a part, even though they had been walking out the whole time. But now you're a part of the thing. It's like a different layer, and you're like, oh boy, like this is intense. And then there was one girl, I wish I knew her name. She was the little blonde girl that was walking behind me. She was so intense. It was awesome. Like watching the video back, she's easily my favorite character, but I wouldn't have gotten to experience that. She wouldn't have gotten to experience that. Her family wouldn't have if Ed hadn't said yes. And so I'm excited to get to say yes to people. Hopefully, throughout the course of us building this, there's at least 8 different moments throughout 8 of these, events that we're putting on where someone asks me something and I'm not too caught up in my own world of making sure that X, Y, and Z are happening, to not realize that Q or R that's being presented to me right now are really important and might tell an incredible story that could outperform the rest of this whole thing. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm just generally excited. I know that, not every single thing that ends up on my whiteboard is going to come true. But hopefully, if we land 40%, we put enough stuff up there, we will tell some really cool stories. We'll have to try to, I don't know, I'll try to get the schedule over to y'all as soon as I can. Try to get y'all on deck for one of these. I have one in particular that y'all will probably want to target, and it's obviously the one where somebody wins.
Yeah. I
mean,
we'd
technically
love
someone wins
that.
every event, but wins the whole thing. Sure. I think we might invest a little bit more heavily, of course, into the championship and the in-venue production and the facility and all of that stuff, and try to tell a really cool story.
Yeah,
we've sold it quite well. I mean, I'm quite excited. I think Scott is quite excited as well. So we're looking forward to the fall of 2026, which will come around quite quick. So it's going to be quite nerve-wracking, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's going to be here fast. And I have these in the world of entertainment, which I'm glad that y'all talk about, like swimming being an entertainment product, because it needs to be. We've talked about the 2 different buckets. It can lean a little bit more towards an entertaining product, or we can just let whatever happens. And I don't really want to do that part. But on the entertainment side of things, like it does have to progress in that way. And in the conversations that we've had with the entertainment world, they're like, y'all have a ton of time. I'm like, what? All right. I love hearing that, because maybe, my gut telling me, hey, hurry up. Like it's going to be here before you know it. We're checking boxes every day. My calendar's never been more full. So it's really exciting. And all these calls are, like I said, people saying, let's find a way to get to a yes, as opposed to I'm going to do everything I can to say no because I don't want to do extra work, which is kind of a typical conversation when you talk about non-revenue sports, right? I love that y'all are excited about this, but this is the reason why not. It's more of this is an exciting product, and I love that you're thinking this way. Let's find a yes, even if it might not be fully the yes that you were looking for when you walked in the room.
Which is a good place to be, like a really good place to be. And
you might be the only place to be.
Yeah, I agree.
There are some situations where it's like, y'all don't really have a choice. This is how it is. We're like, all right, fine. We'll adapt.
Oh man, like we really appreciate you giving up an hour of your time to go through this. And I think from my point of view, the takeaway that I've got the most exciting thing is I've got a list here of questions of what is the CSL? What does the format look like? What does whatever? We haven't covered any of that. I think that's exciting because we've talked about the passion behind the project. We've talked about the word I'm taking. The last time you came on the podcast, the word I took away was layers. Like swimming needs to build layers. This time I'm taking away long stories and building storylines within the sport and swimming. And actually, like me and Dan have said forever, like league structures is what makes a sport and what makes an entertainment product. Because people like me and Dan can sit down and actually talk for 8 weeks straight, and actually we don't need to invite guests on. We can have conversations at 2 a.m. and fit it around sleeping kids, and it works. And
hey, and hopefully we need a good enough product that you want to. That's kind of what I think. And having the media background is one that I think helps me set things up in that way, because I know what it's like, and I want to create long stories with layers, so that y'all run out of time. If you run out of time, we have to do another podcast, which is great because it gives me a little bit more time before our next podcast to kind of settle things a little bit before we dig too deeply into format and season, because we've made adjustments as we've had conversations with these linear providers and stuff like that. I'm excited to jump back on. Having conversations about this part of swimming is what just gets me the most excited. I can nerd out, and I'll absolutely nerd out. Hopefully as the season kicks off and we can dig into some of the performances and all of that. But talking about like the up and coming kind of like modernization and business side, talking about the in-venue experience, that one got me fired up. I was ready to talk about it, and I wish I had more answers right now. But as the media guys say, we have a ton of time. But we're starting to check things off, and we're starting to lock things down. So we'll have more to talk about, and I'm looking forward to jumping back on. It's always fun with y'all.
I mean, hopefully the longer story ethos will then bring a new audience to the sport of swimming, because at the moment it's just the swimming bubble. But if you can try and get more people into the swimming bubble that are currently outside it, then I mean, a win is a win, isn't it? So
right, we grow audience every fourth year. The every 4-year thing that I hammered away at for a really long time, and hopefully didn't annoy too many people with how often I was talking about it. It's real. How can we? I think about the kid that's watching. The swim parent that has a kid that's watching the Olympics, and now they're excited, and their job just got easier, convincing their kid to go get in a pool when it's cold out. How can I have the 3-year-old that's watching swimming for the first time in their family's living room want to go swim? Same thing with the kid that's 7 that's still excited about swimming, but even more so, I think about the kid that's 11 or 12 that is dreading going to Saturday morning practice. How can I put something on the TV for that kid to watch at 6 or 7? Oh no. That was a tough one. Hopefully that doesn't get
you had to put it in.
I know. At between like 6 and 8 o'clock at night, to where when that TV cuts off, he's in bed or she's in bed like, I can't wait for practice. Like how can we do that? How can we add more opportunities for that? And I mean, admittedly, like the 25-year-old, that's like, I haven't swam in so long. And then you watch that and you're like, I got to go swim tomorrow.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it. And equally, I'm looking forward to having you back on when there's more details in play. But like I said, we really appreciate. It's a week after announcement and going public with it, so we really appreciate you coming on, chatting to us. And
of course,
while it's murky waters we're diving through, these are very exciting murky waters for the landscape of swimming.
We're just gonna keep swimming. If I run into a log or something like that in the water, I'll move it out of the way. We'll keep going.
Nice. Well, Kyle, look, have the good rest of your week, rest of your Christmas. If we don't speak to you before then,
y'all as well.
Don't work too hard, but do, because we're looking forward. We're looking forward to what's coming.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate it.
Yeah, best of luck, mate. Best of luck.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.